One of my biggest pet peeves with esports is the constant comparison to traditional sports. What is an athlete? Is one industry more valid than the other? As a fan of both regular and esports, these questions can be really tiring and are hardly the ones we should be asking. Regardless, one thing that's constantly brought up to legitimize esports is the loads of money surrounding every aspect of it. Nowadays, kids have a much easier time explaining why they grind Fortnite for 6 hours immediately after school. There's money to be made, Mom. Most people are familiar with at least one rich streamer. More importantly, kids can point to Booga, the 16-year-old who won $3 million from a single Fortnite tournament. There are plenty more examples too. Call of Duty boasted $4.5 million for their 2020 Modern Warfare Championship. Smite, R6, and Overwatch all clocked in at about $3 million for their championships in 2020. League of Legends and PlayerUnknown dish out about $6.5 to $7 million respectively. Finally, there's Big Daddy Dota regularly breaking world records, offering a mind-boggling $40 million for the 2021 International. So if money legitimizes an industry, then esports is legit. My question is, where does the money come from? Before we break down where prize money actually comes from, we need to first understand the key parties in the industry and how they all interact with each other. First, you have players. These are all the people who compete, from Timmy and Tommy at their first tournament all the way up to the superstars who play for a living. The average player is the fundamental bedrock to any esports, and we cannot overstate their importance to a healthy scene. That being said, when we look at cash flow, we're thinking about these top players who both generate and take home cash. Next, you have teams. A team, organization, or org is a kind of sponsor that will pay a player in exchange for keeping them on their team. This allows them to grow their brand, sell merch, do whatever using that player. While there are a few bad eggs, teams and players typically have a symbiotic relationship. Next, we have tournament organizers. Just like the player, this is the other necessary half for a tournament to exist. These are the people who actually make sure the event happens. They're usually responsible for the media aspect as well, though this can be handed off to a production company. If tournament organizers outsource their media, then the media itself becomes its own party. Next, there are sponsors. These are businesses that pay to advertise during an event. They can directly support a tournament through hardware or capital, or they could sponsor a team and, in effect, its players. Finally, there are the fans. These are the people who buy tickets, watch on Twitch, buy merch, tell their friends about the wicked banana combo Tweak just hit on Leo at Summit 3. Whatever they're doing, they're directly supporting the game in some form. Alright, so now that we know the key parties, let's take a look at where prize money actually comes from. There are 4 main sources to funding for prize pools. You have entry fees, tournament organizers, sponsors, and game developers. Let's break each of these down. First, entry fees often provide a large portion of the prize pool. The vast majority of esports events, especially at the lower levels of competition, have entry fees. And while this is often the source of revenue for the organizer, the majority of it tends to go to a prize pool. In essence, everyone pays to enter and the winner gets the money. This of course generates the smallest prizes. Another source of prize pool funding is the tournament organizers themselves. Some TOs have their own capital that they can use to fund prizes. This becomes more and more common the more prestigious the event. This means that they generate that money through artists at the venue, tickets sold to audiences, or from selling merch. Next, sponsors can pay for prizes in exchange for advertising. Esports events can draw massive audiences, which makes them very attractive to sponsors who will in exchange cover the capital for an event, including its prizing. Finally, there's direct support from developers. Some devs have realized that there is an immense payoff to becoming involved in the esports aspect of their game. As a result, when developers do decide to step in and offer funding, there are rarely prize pools that can compete. This is why games like Dota, CS, Valorant, League, and Fortnite have such thriving scenes. Developers can range from the super involved all the way to those completely ignorant of their own esports. There is, however, a third hidden option, and that's the one Nintendo takes. Super Smash Bros. Is no stranger to controversy, from Melee being removed from EVO to Ninja's tournament that never got off the ground. Smash is not just another title with no support from its developers. Competitive Smash is actively sabotaged by Nintendo. They've taken this puzzling adversarial role to their esport and seek to shut it down whenever possible. For example, Nintendo was behind Smash being removed from EVO and killed Ninja's tournament. This is far worse than if Nintendo were to just ignore the scene outright. Their tendency to shut something down at the drop of a hat scares off potential investors and therefore keeps prizing small. That's why when Maister suggested a higher entry fee to give players larger payout, kind of missed the mark for me. Nintendo's locked off most of the sources of money for competitive Smash. This means that players cannot survive off of playing the game alone. A common solution for players is to supplement this income by signing to a higher team or to start streaming. This solution is again unrealistic as there are too many players who dream of making Smash a livelihood and they can't all stream or all join a team. Okay, so who cares? You don't get $1 million for playing a children's fighting game. Boo-hoo. Well, first of all, I care, so jot that down. But prizes do a lot more than just pay players. A large prize pool accomplishes a couple things. For starters, it draws players in from around the world, making sure that the absolute best play each other. Additionally, this means that players can make the game their livelihood. This allows for players to remove all distractions and make improvement a number one priority. Both of these make the game more exciting to watch. Finally, a large prize pool draws in viewers. Who wouldn't want to see people compete for $1 million? This generates more hype for the game and therefore attracts more sponsors, which in turn makes bigger prizes. Each source of prizing has its own strengths and weaknesses. For example, entry fees provide the most freedom for a tournament. They're not beholden to any sponsor, developer, or big organization. Although this brings the least amount of money and therefore it doesn't incentivize top-level players. Compare that with a sponsored event that boasts huge prizes, draws out top-level talent, and can cover the expense of a quality stream. This does mean you're at the mercy of their decision-making, and when you look at a series like Overwatch League and Blizzard completely nuking it, it makes the decision a little less clear-cut. All in all, I believe that each of these has their own place. For an esport to thrive, there needs to be small local tournaments funded by players, and these giant spectacles that bring out the best of the best. Having representation in all tiers of play shows the game off to the mainstream while still giving new players somewhere to get started. In conclusion, esports is a complex media with different key parties that all interact with one another. Each distinct group can change the landscape of their game dramatically. And while there are plenty of options to bring in those headline prizes, it's important to think about where you land on the cash flow and what a big prize brings.